Mr. Godrej, thank you so much for speaking with us. You are a long-term Davos veteran, and here in your capacity not only as a business leader but also as the CII chairman. Do you feel that the India relevance has diminished this year?
No, I wouldn't say the relevance has diminished. I would say perhaps because of the last 18 months where the reform process in India was slow, except in the last 3 or 4 months. I think the perception of India had changed a little, so for that reason perhaps the discussions on India perhaps might be a little less. But I remember when I used to come here 20 years ago, there was hardly any reference to India. So it's a dramatically changed position since then. But I think India will be discussed in many of the general sessions, and I think the perception has improved dramatically over the last 3 or 4 months. And I feel India is on the move up again, and especially if we can get the goods and services tax passed, we'll be back to an 8% rate.
Right. What roadmap are you looking for? Because that's been delayed as well. What is the exact time?
It's delayed, but I hear from the finance minister is moving forward. He's quite confident of passing it during this calendar year, and I think that could make a big difference.
So it'll be in action by 2014 start.
I feel so.
Okay, let's just move on to also, your interest as a business group and how you manage that. What about organic and inorganic growth for Godrej Group? Because a lot of people are saying that you're going in, you're actually looking at inorganic opportunities, and you did a recent acquisition in UK as well, at a time where companies are more risk averse and looking at domestic growth.
No, we are growing very strongly in our domestic business, but we are adding to that growth inorganically, because in many of our businesses, we work on negative working capital, we generate a lot of cash, so we have strong cash flows, which allows us to go in for inorganic growth. Our domestic organic growth is very strong. Our group as a whole has grown around 30% this year, and we expect to continue that growth. We have a very strong future growth plan called 10 by 10, which is to be 10 times in 10 years, which means a compounded annual growth rate of about 26%, and we expect to achieve that.
So you're looking at buying more companies even now this year?
Yes, we are constantly looking at acquisitions. And
mostly in US and Europe?
No, mostly in the developing world. But because we have a company in Britain called Keyline, which had this potential to acquire a brand, it's not a company, which adds a lot of value because you don't acquire the overheads. We have done that.
Okay, let's go back to the conversation on the macro field and budget, India budget and the expectations around that. Would you want, key things like customs, excise to stay constant? And there's a lot of conversation about inheritance tax and the fact that the rich in India should pay higher taxes.
No, I don't believe the tax rates should be increased, whether it is indirect taxes or direct taxes. Tax rate increase in India has never worked successfully. When we had extremely high rates of taxes before 1991, collections were not very good. Low rates of taxes always got more total tax collection in India. We should widen the tax net. One of the most important issues is that first-time taxpayers hesitate to come in because they think their past might be open. So we must find solutions for that. Widening the tax net is the solution, and I do hope that we don't do anything where perception is affected. And I think increasing tax rates would not be very good for the country.
Okay, one final question about the government perception in India. Like you mentioned, the India story in part has lost a little bit of that sheen because of this constant yo-yoing and the fact that we got too little too late. Maybe the government has been on a sudden reforms push. It went back on the GAR and the taxes there. What do you feel the government should do right now to help private sector like you?
Well, I think the government has done extremely well in terms of taking the reform process forward, postponing, say, GAR and many other things. The messages are very clear. Subsidies have been reduced. So I think it's moving in the right direction. It should move even further in this right direction. And I think both the sentiment and perception about India will improve. And that will bring in more investment and therefore growth.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Godrej. Such a pleasure.
India's #1 news app just got even better. Download NDTV's new app fully optimized for retina display, full screen view, faster response time, and Sudoku. NDTV's new iPad app. Download now.